Welcome back to our coverage of the third Republican debate here on NBC News. I'm Hallie Jackson.
And I'm Tom Yamas. We are live tonight from the spin room, as you can see just behind us. The candidates are now making their way to our set after tonight's debate, and we're joined now live by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Governor, thank you so much for joining our coverage. You were front center stage, hometown hero, if you will. This is your state of Florida. How did you feel you did in this debate, and are you upset that debate after debate, the former president is not there side-by-side debating with you?
Well, I think we did really well, and I think NBC did a good job. I mean, I have watched debates over the years. I've participated in a couple already, and I think the people at home probably got a good viewing experience because the questions were substantive. People were able to talk. There wasn't a lot of screaming back and forth, and so I think the value of this debate was probably more than the one we did in Simi Valley. Look, Donald Trump is not the same guy he was in 2016. You would not have been able to keep him off that stage in 2016. The consultants wouldn't have been able to do that. Now, they don't want him up on the stage. When he gives speeches, it's usually off the teleprompter. And I think his view is like, well, he has a polling lead. Therefore, why would he want to get involved and actually earn the job? But that's not the way this goes. So what I think you're going to see, because I'm on the ground in the early states, voters are now starting to really pay attention. It is going to hurt him if he's not willing to debate going forward, because voters expect you to earn their vote. And if you look at his support, he's got some that are rock solid. He probably doesn't have to debate. But other supporters of his are willing to go for another candidate.
It sure hasn't hurt him yet so far. I don't have to tell you that in the key state of Iowa, he is up by 27 points in our most recent polling here. So let me ask you.
Yeah, but he's at even that poll, which is a good poll from him, he's at 42%. He's the most famous former elected official in the world, the former Republican president. He's at 40%. He should be. Just think about this. If Ronald Reagan ran in like 88, Ronald Reagan would be getting 85 or 90%.
But all Donald Trump needs is you plus one. He only needs second place.
I understand that, but here's the thing. We're in this situation now. The vast majority of people in Iowa and New Hampshire clearly do not want to nominate Donald Trump. So that is not a great position, and the field's going to narrow more as we go into that. And do you say that because of where enthusiasm is? Because the polling shows that there are loyal supporters of Donald Trump who do want to see him get elected. And I ask because no, but it's a minority, though. It's a minority of in those early nominating states. It's a minority. It's not a majority.
You are talking about, because you're in this unique position along with some of these other candidates, where you are looking obviously to win over the former president's base while also distancing yourself from him. Do you need to be tougher on him? What do you say to those critics who suggest you should be going after him harder than you have?
Well, here's how I view the Republican electorate. 25% are going to do Trump no matter what, give or take. 25% have moved on. They don't want to do it. And then the 50 in the middle, they're conservative voters, America First voters. They would vote for him, but they'd also vote for someone else. I think I'm the only guy that really can play in that space of all the candidates here. So what you have to do is you have to prove yourself. And it's not a question of attacking him as much as just telling the truth. So, for example, when I'm on the campaign trail, I always say, he said Mexico would pay for the border wall. Now what he's saying is, well, there was no legal mechanism I could have done to do that. I think if you guys covered that campaign, he was very clear, Mexico paid for the wall. But the thing is, people told him at the time, you could tax the remittances of foreign workers and you could raise the billion. So I will actually do that. So what I tell people is, as governor of Florida, I delivered on 100% of my promises. I'll do that as president, but also deliver on his promises that he didn't fulfill.
Governor, I'm curious what you've learned on the campaign trail, right? Campaigns aren't easy. And I want to know what you're telling your voters and your donors, because a year ago, a Wall Street Journal poll had you 14 points above former President Trump. And so it seems as Republican voters have gotten to know you more, your poll numbers have dropped.
I don't think that's it.
So
I don't think that's it, because even this Des Moines poll, I have the highest favorability and the highest we consider. I think the issue is, if you look at the information flow, when I got reelected, I was dominating the news. Trump was not getting a lot of news. What changed was the Alvin Bragg indictment, where he started to dominate the news. So you're saying the indictments are helping him with the GOP voters, without a doubt? It definitely helped. The Bragg certainly did. And part of it is, I think they feel, and I agree on the Bragg, that it was not a valid case. But it's also just the fact that if you look at the amount of media he gets versus me, that the information flow in these national polls is what does it. I think the difference in Iowa and New Hampshire is you have a chance to pierce through that. Yeah, he may get 5-to-1 coverage on me, but I can go shake someone's hand. I can run advertising, and I can try to even that out. But that you're not going to see, I think, the sea change in that until people really start to make decisions. I do think with Kim Reynolds endorsing me, though, I think that that that's a big moment for the Iowa caucus, because I've talked to people in Iowa. Basically, they said, you know what, when Governor Reynolds came out for Governor DeSantis, basically that's telling Iowa caucus goes, you know what, you got to plug in now, and you're going to start seeing that.
And that was only a few days ago. Let me ask you about a policy issue that's on a lot of people's minds after what we've seen in the last 24 hours. We're coming fresh off here, election night 2023, as we head into election 2024, and the issue of abortion access seemed to power Democrats to victories in some of these key states and in some of these key races. One of the things you alluded to on stage was that a lot of states feel very differently about the issue of abortion rights. Do you believe, then, that there should be no national ban, that a national ban should be off the table here, as some of your competitors have suggested?
Well, what I've said is if you look at the practical reality of a divided country, it's going to be a bottom-up situation. That's just the reality, regardless of what you think. But what I also say on this is pro-lifers in particular have a big problem on these referenda, because if you look at like Ohio, a chunk of those voters would vote for Republican candidates, but if the issue is presented the way it is, they're willing to vote for what, from a pro-life perspective, was a very extreme, very expansive pro-abortion amendment. So I think the pro-life movement has got to start keying in on these referenda. You got to be strategic about how you're doing it. You need to know the landscape that you're dealing with. There may be some states where you shoot in a certain direction. There may be others you shoot in a different one. But they have been getting their clock clean on the referenda. I think that's a big problem. I don't think it's as big a deal.
So do you believe a national ban should be off the table?
I don't think it's as much about the electoral in terms of the candidates. I mean, obviously it plays a role, but good Republican candidates did very well in 2022 in the aftermath of Dobbs. I think for our party, I think that's part of it, but I think it's also, quite frankly, the Trump factor. I think there's certain voters that they don't like the Trump, the Trump shtick, and they break for the Democrats, even though they think the country's going in the wrong direction. That is why I've argued, and others, and Kim Reynolds argued, Donald Trump as the nominee would be a huge risk, because when push comes to shove, all these elections since Biden's gotten in, special elections and then this, in the midterm, we should be cleaning house. He's unpopular, president of another party, and yet they're overperforming in almost everyone. And that's pre-Dobbs, too. It's not just post-Dobbs. That's why I think that's a big factor.
The data and the election losses show Republicans may be up against some headwinds when it comes to abortion. We're going to have to wait and see until November. Governor, we appreciate all your time. The governor